So, image-wise, I've always been fascinated by the collective interest in the human likeness. And it just amazes me, our relationship to the human likeness. And this is a painting by John Singer Sargent, 1887. It's a 27-year-old woman from Boston. Really beautiful, really captivating as far as the quality of the painting. But there's also, at that same time, in 1882, the camera is emerging, and it's changing our relationship to the human image and the human likeness. So this is a dead Jesse James. So this was shot in Missouri by a guy named Ullman. Jesse's body moving around the country on ice, and people wanted their photo with Jesse James. So all of a sudden, the human likeness changes again. This is me in 1966, 7 years old. I'm in St. Albans, Vermont, so I'm sort of finding my place in the world. And this was a different thing again. It's like a slice in time, an instant Polaroid, this instant image of you, like your meaning and who you are. And this is something my grandfather showed. So a leap ahead in time. So this is a portrait. I guess this is a portrait. So 7 or 8 years ago, I used to drink wine. I don't usually drink anymore. But late at night, I would drink a lot of wine, watch a lot of films and movies and reviews. And then I would find my way upstairs, and like many of you probably have done if you really did it. The next thing happens, and you look at yourself. And you kind of pass through this doorway where you kind of break down this fear. You actually, not just washing your face or shaving or something, you look into yourself. And it's pretty freaking scary. So I would spend time doing that. And it just kind of made me think about, like, what is your freaking meaning? Like, what is your purpose in place? So I really started thinking about that and feeling that. I had something happen about a month and a half ago. I was in a yoga class, a Bikram class, and they use mirrors in Bikram. And the instructor pointed out that why do they have these mirrors in Bikram? And it's because you are looking at the consequence of you. That's the main idea. It's like, whoa. It's not just the consequence physically, but like the consequence of your meaning. And she said, if that's too heavy, then it's sort of your spine and your shoulders and all that stuff. But that really blew my mind. Like, man, I'm looking at the consequence of me. Like, shit. This is a piece of art that they did in 1980, so leap sort of back and forth. 1980, an illustration, it's a graphite drawing of Iggy Pop. He actually turned it into his own thing. I actually was fortunate enough to meet him. He scribbled Iggy Pop will never stop in the middle, and he's like, now it's an original Iggy Pop. But as a young artist, I was like, graphite, realism, that's what art is. That was the bar. I was 19 years old. This is 2005, after a trip to Portugal. This is kind of a portrait too. And I had, this is 8 feet square, painted on 2 pieces of plywood with a mop. But it's based on looking into the face of a bull, and I had a therapist actually tell me that that was me. It was a portrait of me. So, sort of disintegration. This is the latest portrait. This is from 2012 for the Flynn event. This was printed at the BCA. This is actually a portrait called Son of God. So there is actually someone in there, if you can see it in the grain of the wood. But it was about stripped to the essentials, just that minimalist place. So it was interesting how my life was changing from like realism and how important that was, and then it gets more violent, and then all of a sudden it turns into this other place. So objectivity and subjectivity, it really seems like our relationship to portraiture is changing. So can we actually do an objective image that you are totally unprejudiced by? Or is it only subjectivity, where you are molding yourself onto whatever you're seeing, or the advent of selfies? Is that just completely subjective? And I think there's another place. This is my son. He's kind of bummed that I showed this picture of him, but I asked him to do this. But this is one of the things that's happening. The digital dimension, eye contact is going away. People are hiding in these devices. And that ability to connect and look into yourself and look into others' eyes is part of what portraiture is about. So I started thinking, is there another place? So the id, and a lot of people think Freud is full of shit and hate him, but the apparatus he created of the id and the ego, the superego, the id is the mediator between the two. And I think there might be a place called idjectivity. Like, could you actually create self-portraits or portraits of people that get to the id, that sort of get to the truth of who someone is? Is that even possible? Because our relationship to the human image and how we image ourselves totally changing. A couple of people that experimented with cool portraiture. Irving Penn, 1950s portrait of Marcel Duchamp. Irving Penn would put these people in these wedges, and he would make them uncomfortable. He'd leave them there, trapped by the camera, to make them uncomfortable and be something different, or reveal something about themselves. They get pissed off, all kinds of things happen. Robert Mapplethorpe, Patti Smith, this is a portrait where they were 18 years old. I just love this image because of the raw, just unvarnished truth and innocence of it. The sort of just kids kind of quality, and Patti Smith was captured this. This is from that time. There's something about, even in a unified couple, that's incredibly powerful. Of course, Andy Warhol, this is, he created these images that were screen tests. He did filmed portraits. What's interesting in these, Edie Sedgwick has the ability to look dead down the lens and had no fear of herself. David Bowie really he couldn't do it. He started performing and doing all kinds of stuff. She could look right down the lens, and he would leave them there with the camera. This is something my daughter just gave me. This is a woman named Erin Riley. She was an artist that graduated from Mass Art. This is 2014. She's taking selfies, and then this is a selfie of her. She collects selfies and turns them into woven pieces of art. So she's taking craft from a digital instant moment. So anyway, I have this idea. So this is a panel. This is a mirror. So I'm using myself as an example here. I want to take portraits of people where they're looking at themselves. They're faced with the consequence of themselves, drilling a hole in a mirror, and then I'll have my iPhone behind it. So it's somewhat, there's this hint of voyeuristic presence, but you're basically faced with yourself, is the idea. And I'm going to leave people there. I may let them drink. I don't know what I'm going to do, but somehow there's going to be this relationship. In the end, I'm going to go back in time to the Iggy Pop type thing, and I want to do 8 by 8 foot graphite portraits, back to our sort of carbon base of who we are, do graphite or charcoal based portraits that are 8 feet square, based in the sort of Jackson Pollock and Warhol style, would just overwhelm you, you should be swallowed by these images. This is my son Eli. We shot this last weekend using this technique. He was actually looking in the mirror. This isn't, of course, a graphite sketch yet. It's just a brooded photo. But this is the ratio of scale that ultimately I'm looking for. But it's an experiment. Can you find images in the blink of an eye and the subtleties about what we communicate about ourselves that feel like portraits that have not been done before? So that's the exploration that I'm looking at doing. And this last image is basically an invitation. I don't know who I'm going to shoot. I don't know who will be willing to do this. I don't want people wearing clothing. They could be nude from here down, but no jewelry, no ornamentation, no reference to time. So I don't really know who I'm going to shoot, so this is sort of an anonymous freak. So anyway, that's the idea. It's just a future.